You've endured the online ticketing queue, stumped up an eye-watering amount of money, and travelled across country to see your favourite legendary rock band. The anticipation is heavy in the air. The lights dim, the crowd roars, and out onto the stage steps some bloke. Instead of the legends you were expecting, you're treated to a tribute act from the local social club. They're wearing the right clothes, they've got the right logo on the bass drum, and they clearly know the lyrics, but that's where the similarity ends. Or perhaps you've booked a table at a 3 Michelin star establishment. You expect the culinary equivalent of a religious experience. Yet as you sit there, you spot that the master chef is actually a lad from your local greasy spoon, and he's back there plating up your £90 starter. Then, of course, there is the automotive version of this grand deception. You take delivery of a bespoke supercar. It's all carbon fibre, Italian leather, and aggressive aerodynamics. It looks capable of breaking the sound barrier. You invite the neighbours over. You pop the bonnet with a flourish of pride, and there, nestled where a V12 power unit should be, is a 1 litre engine from a budget hatchback. They're each extreme examples, and they're each as unlikely and preposterous as the next. And yet that bait and switch notion of paying for one thing and getting another plays out on UK demolition sites on a daily basis. There are demolition contractors today that own no equipment and employ virtually no people. They're merely a shell, a broking company that wins work and farms it out to an unnamed subcontractor. Now, subcontracting is a process that lies at the very heart of the UK demolition and construction industry. Some of the biggest contractors in the country manage projects rather than actually doing them. And you might argue that acting as a broker is, in fact, a highly efficient and shrewd means of running a business. Virtually zero overheads, minimised risk, maximum profit. Furthermore, some of the third-party firms doing the actual work are very good and very competent. But is this strictly above board? Is the client actually getting what they're paid for? And what happens when something goes wrong? Let's start with the question of transparency and honesty. If a demolition contractor wins a project on the basis that it will sub it out to a third party and the client is happy to proceed, then no problem at all. The client knows precisely where they stand, and I get it. Sometimes demolition contractors are simply too busy to do all the work themselves, and there's nothing wrong with subbing out work to shave off the workload peaks. Whether the client is getting what they paid for, however, is quite another question. Because some of the firms that occasionally or generally act as brokers claim elite status. They're members of the right trade bodies, they're independently audited, they're required to abide by a very specific code of conduct, and they have ISOs and accreditations up the wazoo. They are, in essence, a client's dream, at least on paper. But when the team arrives on site sporting generic PPE, or when the equipment pitches up with a magnetic logo covering the name of another company, is the client still getting what they paid for? That client was won over by talk of site audits, accreditations, and trade memberships. But the work is now being undertaken by a third party company that has none of these things. To put it bluntly, a client may have paid for blue chip, but what they actually got was a bag of chips. And what about the cost? These broker style companies aren't running their business for altruistic reasons or to keep lower level contractors gainfully employed. They're doing it to make money. And they often make that money by selling the client a Ferrari dream, but delivering a Ford Mondeo. And the cheaper they can employ that Mondeo level subby, the more profit they stand to make. And yet cost is only part of the story. As part of the bidding process, the demolition company would have talked at length about its health and safety track record, its environmental capabilities, and its employment diversity policies. That contractor might genuinely possess all of those attributes, but if they farm out the work, those accreditations become effectively meaningless. They're showing the client a Michelin-rated menu that will be cooked by a man who specialises in bacon sandwiches. And then, of course, there is the issue of what happens should things go awry, an incident, an accident, or, God forbid, a fatality. The client believes it's employed a company with the systems, protocols, financial heft, and the insurance backing to weather such an eventuality. But they're not the people doing the actual work. In any other walk of life, we'd call this what it is, a sham. But in the field of demolition, this isn't just an open secret, it's a piece of industry theatre in which everyone seemingly plays a role. Now, I started by talking about cover bands, Michelin star meals, and underpowered supercars. They're all light-hearted ways of explaining the whole bait and switch idea of promising one thing and providing another. But in demolition, this is no joke. Demolition is tough, demanding, relentless. It's a struggle, a battle, a war. And you'd like to think you're fighting alongside the best of the best, elite, battle-hardened soldiers. But under the current terms of engagement, you could be fighting alongside rookies armed with nothing more than pointy sticks.